When somebody just doesn't do what they want them to, what you want them to do in the training process, well, there's a lot of different things. So again, I'll ask, is there a situation that you can have me run with?
I have a gentleman who's stuck in internal rotation on both of his shoulders. His right arm can get through pretty good, but when he either will do like a preacher type of curl or try to press overhead, he will flare out and try to internally rotate that movement all the way to the
Is this gentleman have a low training age?
He's larger,
but he's weak.
Stronger than your average Joe.
Okay, all right. So he's not the avatar I'm thinking of, because sometimes what I'm trying to get at is when you see these things in the way you're judging them, which is not wrong, sometimes they just kind of motor morons. And now that's not a terminology we should ever use to describe somebody who's giving us money, but at some point there's a skill process that they're just not getting. And sometimes it's because what clearly for their body, even for this gentleman, their body type, they're still, you would think they're stronger, but it might not be what the muscle can actually do, but how can they connect in their motor strategy. So for instance, if pressing is your factor here, when you see this business that looks awful, is he always standing, sitting or standing? Have you ever tried to press him off one knee? However, I take a cheat clean, I got my bell here and I look like this, okay? Have you ever done this one? And then press. Have you ever put him into hands and knees for any drill? If you were to just do one component of the beast crawl, whatever that means, I have an idea of what it is. What if you put a rubber band around like his hand and he pressed, like if he just did this? You think he could do that?
No.
No, what would happen? He'd do that business.
Yeah, and then it would stop like here.
Understood. Have you ever put him on his back? Yeah, the same move. Everything's got to be the same move.
Not in that same move. We've tried tricep work on his back, but in the same thing.
Understood. Okay, so what I just did was give you like a process to start to see, can he ever do it? And it sounds like he can never do it. It sounds like. Now that doesn't mean he can never do it. If you started with standing, you have the entire body plus the vestibular system to integrate. Sometimes it's just too much for whoever that person is and the exercise you're asking them to do. Then we go backwards and we try to, instead of stand up the spine, we would stack the spine. So that's your sitting and kneeling. And I still can't do it because there's less business to control and a more stable base of support when I don't have my foot. Now, I would, in the way you're describing, at least how I'm visualizing, I'd be very reticent to suggest that some type of foot issue is making this happen. It doesn't mean that there is nothing to improve on his foot. But if I take the feet out of the equation, maybe there's an angle to start to think of what I'm trying to describe. Anybody who says they're going to do something to their foot and to fix somebody's press, this is weird. Now, clearly putting force into the ground to press more is a different story. But I'm talking about the function of the foot. But I took that out because it's way easier to stand on your knee than, or stand on my bottom, but he still can't do it. And then we suspended the spine. We went from standing to stacked to suspended, which is in a more proprioceptive position. That's why we have our core exercises there, even though we can do core in any position. And then I asked you to do the same thing, and you said he couldn't do it. So again, this is it's starting to become interesting. And then you would try, maybe take a rubber band and put it around his foot, and then put it here, and then press. Can he do that? So if he could do that last one, then you could then make a suggestion that his shoulder can do it. The joint can actually do, and however you want to coach, it's not me. But you're not seeing what you want to see, you're trying to understand why. Well, let's make sure that under the easiest and simplest positions possible, if they still can't do it, maybe it's because they can't do it. Maybe it is because their shoulder is stiff, or maybe he doesn't verbalize pain, but there's something, the way his body recognizes his shoulder, that it ain't gonna happen, okay? That's very possible if you can't do it in any position, under any environment. So can you move his arm? So like if I did this, so show me, just make believe. Yeah. Now what if I, relax, what if I came and did this? Can that happen? So if I did it, it would kind of go like this. I would ask you to reconsider this movement then, because there's 4 components. So I gave you 4 components to how you can change the stabilization demands. Does that make sense? By changing the position. You also do something else when you change the position. You also eliminate joints, like I was saying, the foot, but that's wild. That's I'm not saying it can never happen, but there would be no reason to think that would happen. You could then, after the fact, be like, yeah, that's what did it. So take anything that you don't like what you're saying, so you're gonna change the position. Walking, sprinting, they look awful, but they look good crawling. Just crawl the hell out of them. It will translate at some point, provided it's not their ankle or one of the joints that you're eliminating. Because when you change positions, you also eliminate joints. So we might have seen some things in there where we eliminated joints and you saw something completely different than what you need to see in standing for an athlete, okay? But fitness, general fitness, in my opinion, does not have to happen in standing if you actually can't do it. So you can change positions, you can eliminate joints, you can also change the stabilization demands. So for instance, I suggested using a rubber band. Well, obviously I'm gonna have to do something different. If I just push you, you stabilize differently. What if I took a rubber band that was on that rack over there and I did this kind of reverse fly, and then all of a sudden, that can happen. That can happen. I could put a rubber band around my knees and just do something that I think I'm strengthening my hips, and all of a sudden my shoulder works better. That can happen. So you got all these things to try, which might make this interesting to a client who might be hopefully not getting frustrated with this inability to do something. So you have change positions, eliminate joints, and sometimes those go hand in hand, change the stabilization demands, get on hands and knees, put a rubber band around their ankles and tell them to pull it apart. And then all of a sudden, because when you do that, you'll tighten certain areas. You're just kind of changing the game. You're making them take it seriously. Not language that should ever be used to someone struggling, but that's what you're doing. Like you're making because if they can do it, how come they couldn't do it before? They just needed more coaching. But the coaching wasn't coming from your mouth. It was coming from the environment. The last one, which I would ask you guys to be a little bit more cautious with, is what I just did, active versus passive. Because you don't know that he's not doing it because of his shoulder. And then when you move, you did that. That's on you. You're going. You're frying. You're frying. That's why having somebody that can look at things in the same way that we would all want to look together, that can at least take the heat. Because I do think general population clients, they came here to train hard. They'll go to see a chiro or a PT, and they can accept if something didn't feel right to them. But you can see it. If you can move something passively, now if you set up an exercise that moves their shoulder passively, as long as you're not doing it, but you can still figure that out. So if all of these situations still result in this, don't do it. That's somebody that if you want to do other types of pressing movements at that angle, we probably need to partner up with somebody to understand, is this a soft tissue limitation? Is this a joint issue? Now, the next layer to looking at that is the neck, the thoracic spine. I kind of count the glenohumeral joint and the scapula together. There are some times you can theoretically work one without the other, and they certainly need to be able to move independently. But it is very reasonable that if you put a foam roller in someone's back this way and have them do some crunches and kind of get some snap, crackle, and pop, and all of a sudden their shoulder move better. So you're going through this process by trying new exercises that would fit the mindset, of my opinion, of a general population. A therapist that would believe in all the same things would probably get there a little bit faster, but they don't have the same kind of responsibility to the minutes that you spend with this person. So sometimes if the thoracic spine does not extend or rotate, or just if it just doesn't do what it's supposed to do, whatever that could be at that time, the scapula changes position.